oppression. We've given asylum to people. We want to be a tolerant society, but we don't want to live in a divided society. And I think the point about the covering of the face is we see this as a symbol of an increasingly divided and ghettoised Britain, and we don't want it. We want to live together, regardless of race, religion or class. We want to rub along together and operate in the same society, and we see the burqa being worn, you know, whether it's on public transport or in a bank or in an area where we couldn't cover our face. We see this as being a barrier.
So what's your policy? Where would you ban the burqa?
David, I don't think it's desirable to tell people what they should wear walking down the high street in Hartlepool.
But you just have.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. What I've said is that if I can't walk into you know, the local bank in Hartlepool wearing a balaclava, then somebody should not go in there with their face covered wearing a burqa. That's all I've said.
Well,
and I think
you didn't say that. It's the first time you said that. But what you
changed your policy this week.
No, never changed our. But we've always said we want equality in this country. We can't have a group of people being given preferential treatment, and it is a symbol.
So where you can't wear the balaclava,
yes,
the balaclava test really is what you'd
well, it could be the motorcycle helmet, David.
Or the motorcycle helmet,
but yeah.
Sadiq Khan.
I don't think we should legislate on what people wear. I think it's patronising for us to tell people what to wear or what not to wear. I think it's ironic that we want to empower these women by criminalising it. We want to emancipate them by sending them to prison. And as objectionable as some of you may find, and as oppressive as you might find, that in some countries you've got to be forced to cover up, I think people will find it equally oppressive and unpalatable that we force them not to cover up. Nigel, and what was wonderful about our country is not just the tolerance, but the respect we have for each other, not just differences of opinion, differences of culture, differences of dress. And if it's the case that the mischief is a woman wearing a niqab or a man wearing a balaclava in a bank, then in that particular circumstances you can ask them to take it off, for example, in the airports, as they do. But to then make that into a bigger argument about they shouldn't wear it on the streets.
I haven't said that.
It's leading to division. You use the word division.
I haven't said
use the word preferential treatment. I think that's just disingenuous.
Well, I haven't said it. I haven't said it today. So I haven't said that. Sorry, but I haven't said that. The French have, but I haven't.
Well, as a Muslim yourself, do you have any view about whether Muslim women should or shouldn't wear the veil?
No, I'm agnostic. I'm quite relaxed about it. I think as a man, I don't like the idea of me telling women what to wear. The idea, I would say, at my advice surgery, because your miniskirt is too short, I'm not seeing you. Because your nose is pierced, I find you objectionable. Or because you're wearing a niqab, I will not see you.
Different,
it's just
isn't it?
patronising.
This is people covering their face.
You know, and the point is,
it's covering their face, and they're ruining their life chances, aren't they?
Well, listen, if you're concerned...
Do you want equality or not?
Nigel, if you're concerned about the life chances of British women in Muslim faith, why don't you make sure they do better at schools by investing more in our schools rather than closing...
Well, you had 13 years to do that, and you clearly failed to do so.
For example, want to encourage more to go to university?
The man up there. You know, the man in the striped T-shirt there, yes. Yes, sir. Up there at the back, yes.
Yeah, the balaclava question is hypothetical, but I have to remove my full-face crash helmet if I go into Tesco's to buy petrol.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And you said... OK, Damien Green, I'll come to you.
What would be the BBC's viewpoint? When we signed in today, we had to show a visual photo ID of ourselves, which wouldn't have happened with somebody in a burqa, presumably.
I don't know what... people do wear the burqa in question time. We've had...
So what happens when they sign in?
I imagine they show their faces. I don't think that's any big issue. Damien Green.
And nor is it when you come through immigration control. Absolutely. Of course you've got to show your face, to show that your face is the face of the person on your passport. So the whole security issue, which Nigel tries to raise, is a complete red herring. It's nothing to do with this debate. And I'll tell you why I said I thought a ban on the burqa was un-British. Because I think one of the best British traditions is live and let live. Have mutual tolerance and respect for each other. And the idea that politicians should pass a law telling women what they can and can't wear is profoundly un-British. It's a big step towards a police state.
How can it be un-British if 67% of people
in one opinion poll? In one opinion poll.
Well,
I think we We had 13 years of a government that would take one opinion poll and say, right, we're going to change policy now. And very often that's when the previous government, not all it did was bad, but that was when it was at its worst.
Okay.
But apart from that, think of the practical implications. That we would be sending the police out on the high streets of Britain to arrest young women for what they were wearing. Do you want to see that? And if they refuse to take it off, presumably they'd be fined, they'd be taken to court. If they refuse to pay the fines, we'd be jailing them. First of all, that would be the most tremendous waste of police time and court time and taxpayers' money. And secondly, I can't think of a single way of increasing divisions in our society than that the majority in society should say to one particular minority, indeed a minority of the 2 million Muslims in this country, to say, you alone are going to be banned from wearing an item of clothing that you want to wear, and we're going to make you criminals for wearing it. It would be really, really stupid. Is it?
You've been talking a lot, Damien Green, so I'm tempted not to go to you first. But I won't. I'll come to you in a moment. Nigel Farage, who's right? The 67% of the British who say they want the burqa banned, or Damien Green, who says it's un-British to do that?
Well, Damien Green says that, but Caroline Spellman, who also speaks for the government, says that the burqa is empowering. Now, I find this concept absolutely extraordinary. The idea that a woman being covered up is somehow empowered when it seems to me that her chances of being fully a part of society, her chances of getting a job have been severely diminished, shows me that this government has frankly lost its courage. It doesn't want to discuss this issue because, you know, the French have discussed this issue in their parliament. The Belgians, odd country that it is, have discussed this issue in their parliament. The Spanish are about to, the Italians are going to, the Syrians this week have decided to ban the burqa on university campuses. It is banned in Turkey. So right across the Middle East and the Western world, there is a very serious debate about the burqa. I think that this is yet another issue where this coalition government, and I'm afraid the Labour Party too, show themselves to be completely out of touch with the vast majority of British people. And what people are saying is, look, we have been the most tolerant country in Europe. We have been the haven.
You just saw, in that video, you just saw 25 years of my life concertinaed down into 3 minutes. Didn't I look young once? I was even quite shy when I started off, you know. But it just goes to show that sometimes the good things in life have to be fought for. The good things in life take time to come to fruition. That the good things in life, in the face of the opposition of the establishment, are hard to achieve. But it all makes you realise, doesn't it, that in 2016, with the Brexit vote and the election of Donald Trump, we stuffed the establishment. We did. And the really good news is that here we are, over a year on, and that revolution that you were all a part of, that revolution is still rolling. It's still rolling across the West. Back in 2000, just 8% of the votes in Europe went to patriotic parties. This year, it is 24% of the vote that is going to patriotic parties, and that number can only go up. And I think the real inspiration now for the future is going to be the man that appeared on this stage and spoke to you this morning. You know, I was very happy to support in any way I could Donald Trump's campaign back in 2016. I now think, with him over a year into the presidency, it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. I really do. I really do. I thought he'd be good, but I got to tell you, he has exceeded all expectations. He's on the way to being a truly great president of this country. And I was lucky. I was fortunate this morning that shortly after he came off this stage, I got the chance to have a conversation with him. And I must say, my impression of him today was, here was a president at ease with himself. Here was a president in good humour. And here was a president at the very top of his game. So there's plenty of good news out there, but we must not and we should not underestimate our enemies. The establishment are still not reconciled with those shock results as they saw them back in 2016. The establishment, in some ways, are fighting harder to damage the reputation of the president and indeed to try to delay, water down or stop Brexit. These people will never stop. And you've seen it here in this country, that now the mainstream media have actually become the opposition. They're not objectively reporting news. 90% of what you see on mainstream media in the States is negative about the president. Mind you, I suppose given the state the Democrats are in, maybe there needs to be an opposition of some kind in this country. Because they kind of haven't quite got their act together, have they? In fact, I'm hearing stories that maybe they'll nominate Hillary next time round as well.